Good evening, everyone. It's me, Paddy from across the Shuck, and I'm with my pals. One is Justin, one is Dan, and we have Ben Belkin all the way from America, who's going to talk a little bit tonight about the beautiful Lennys Clip, which is coming up for sale on Friday at 1900 in the UK. Again, from Fraymar Knives. I'll put that down in the description. Go and check them out, but they'll be on sale there at 1900 on Friday. So that's Friday the 16th, by the way. First of all, I'm so glad to have Ben on, and I just want to say, just for me to say thank you to Ben and our podcast. He's going to come on each month a few days before the knives, the next iteration goes on sale, to just give us his insight into why he designed the knife, any specifics that he took from the original knives that he's took designs from. And I'm looking forward to this because it's just going to be hopefully about half an hour, and we can get to grips with what's coming from the man himself. So Ben, you're very welcome. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Stephen, for the lovely introduction, and I'm very happy to be here.
Lovely. Now, I think, Justin, from our last podcast, we had somebody who was slurring your knives, Ben, and he happens to be on the Paddy and Pals team. I think it's Justin is his name. Justin, is there anything you would like to say?
I mean, as everybody out there probably knows by now, I like to be a wee bit argumentative about stuff. I don't like everybody to think that Paddy and Pals is just an echo chamber where we all agree with each other. And everybody knows that I will deliberately agree with Dan because Dan's wrong about everything. So I mean that's the way we work. But in this case, I have to admit that I was wrong about the dogleg jack. What do we call this one, Stephen? And this is the one I complained about, the fact that this was an ugly fat spear. All right. And then Stephen or Paddy with his corrupting influence sent me this knife, he actually sent Sally round with this knife. It was like a drug deal out the front of my house. He passed it over. As she said, there you go. Don't do what you need to do with it. And I got it in hand, and I've been playing around with it since Saturday, I think, wasn't it, Paddy? It was Saturday we were playing around with this, and I have to say, Ben, I take it all back. I mean, I'm a middle-aged man. You know as well as I do how difficult it is to change tack at our age. I mean, come on. But this is a beauty, and I mean, I have to admit, I'm a convert now to this spear. This spear is not fat and ugly. This spear is gorgeous. This spear is beautiful, I have to say. And the comfort of it in hand is just nothing ordinary. It really isn't. And the only regret I have is that apparently I have to give it back to Stephen at some stage. So it's going to break my heart when it actually has to go. But that's me, pie, humble, eaten. I take it all back. So again, if you can change my mind, Ben, you're laughing, kiddo. So congratulations on that one.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll hold up my spear too. For a guy who really loves Swiss Army knives, is it a fat spear? Yeah, but it's proportional. Yeah. And I don't think it's, maybe it's a chubby spear. It's not a fat spear.
I can live with, and actually, Ben, Ashley Harrison, who was with us a couple of weeks ago, he pointed out something I think was really, really interesting, because he's not a fan of fat spears either. When he's doing his own spear points, he designs them a little bit more economically than this. But what he did say about this one after he'd seen it was that it was perfect in proportion to the handle. It was, if it had been a fat spear with a skinny handle, it would have looked wrong. But because of the shape of the dog leg of the hilt, it just works perfectly. So again, it's a triumph of design. So hat off, kid. I can't say any fairer than that.
Well, I appreciate it, and I think it goes to illustrate that it's hard to appreciate any knife, mine, anybody else's, until you get them in the hand.
Very true.
You know, whether it's a photograph or a video, it does not compare to actually putting one in your hand. And so I'm pleased that when you got it in the hand, that it worked for you.
The artwork for this new knife, for the Lennys Clip, is absolutely fantastic. How much did you have to do with that?
So it's funny. I'm glad you like it because I felt a little silly putting myself on the can, but I didn't want to name it the Lennys Clip because, you know, that's Tony's knife name. And that it's not like that's a recognized pattern through the ages. Like this one's relatively new. And frankly, you know, maybe Case would sue me if I called mine the Lennys Clip. So, you know,
and a lot of custom makers just called it the Lennys Clip when they were making the pattern.
They do, but you know, they make a few here and there, you know. So, but nonetheless, it was my own interpretation. It had a similar ring to it. I was like, oh, it's the Lennys Clip. And there's more of a backstory to that, which we could get into if you'd like, kind of a tangent. But ultimately, so we were trying to, let's talk about the artwork. I guess that's a fun conversation. So my idea for that one originally was I wanted to get some inspiration from like one of my favorite album covers from the 80s, which was the Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction album cover, which if you've seen it, it's like, I think it's a cross and there's like skull faces of all the people in Guns N' Roses on it.
Right.
And I thought it would be cool to have kind of something similar to that. That was just like the genesis of the art. And it sort of evolved into creating a skeleton character for me. We kind of abandoned, you know, duplicating the cover art and then sort of evolved it into that. And so we were discussing like, what do we do, you know? And we just kind of figured it would look good. Couple guys, you know, bad to the bone, kind of in that pose. And and I thought the sketch looked really cool and we just ran with it.
I have to say this, as soon as I opened the knife up or the package up, it was just you straight away. I could see the hat, the glasses, the whole lot. And I just burst out laughing. It was instant hit. It was just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I thought, I try to, you know, I'm the face of the company, so I have to be somewhat of a character myself. And so I've got my trademark stuff, my beard, my sunglasses, the hat, and it just kind of worked.
Really did.
So I'm glad you like it.
Really, really did. Do you know the other thing, Ben, that, sorry, I'm jumping in here, boys. It's just questions that I sort of wanted to ask. You see the likes of your hats, Ben? Are you going to make them for sale over here? Can they be sent, or is that too much of a hassle? You know, the actual hats or shirts or anything like that, would they be able to be sold here, or would Frank do it?
Yeah, I would say the answer is yes. I have on my website right now in a section called merch, short for merchandise. There's a really neat, if anybody's interested in this, you can look into it. But there's a company called Printful, Printful. I don't know if they service outside the United States or not. And basically, it's a print-on-demand service.
Yeah.
So you go on their website, you upload your logo, you can design all kinds of products, not just hats and shirts. They have mouse pads and mugs and, you know, and you put your logo on the stuff. And so the way it works is a customer purchases that item, that order is sent over to Printful, and they print it on demand and ship it to them. So it allows you to offer merchandise on your website, but not have to stock. Like, okay, I have a T-shirt, small, medium, large, extra large, double X, triple X, you know, 10 of each. That's a lot of merchandise to stock if you're trying to stock the stuff. And so I tell you all that because I'm not sure. I'd have to check if they would even fulfill an order to UK and ship over there. You know, if not, I could order a batch of them, put them in a box and ship them to Frank and Andrew, and they could sell them to you guys.
Or I could do that. I can do that for you, even on my channel, whichever suits. If it's too much for Frank and Andrew, I'm quite happy to do that for you.
It really wouldn't be too much trouble for either of us.
Right.
It'd just be kind of costly. The thing when you order T-shirts and hats through Printful is they're not cheap. So on my website, I think I mark them up like $1 to $2 over my cost, because I look at it as anybody who wants to wear my merchandise, like, you're kind of advertising for me. I'm not gonna, charge you some obnoxious price on a T-shirt or a hat when you're doing me a huge favor just by wearing this stuff. I'm happy to do it, Stephen. If guys want T-shirts and hats, I'm happy to figure it out. It's not too much difficult. It's just, it might be kind of expensive by the time they get to the UK, but we're not going to make any money on them. It's just, it's goodwill, and it's my appreciation for you guys representing the brand. So I'm happy to do it.
I want a hat. I've got my favorite hat at the minute is a Victorinox hat. So a Jack Wolf hat. At least I can afford a Jack Wolf hat, Jack, until I get my until I save up for Christmas and Santa brings me my Jack Wolf knife, which will
Stop calling me Santa.
Ben, you actually said about there was a story behind the Benny's clip. So can we have it? Because honest to God, I love the stories that are in the background of this stuff. So what's the tale behind it, apart from the Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction artwork thing?
Sure. So, gosh, I want to put a year on this. Let's just call it like 2017, maybe 2018 at the latest. I'm like just dialed into knife collecting at this point, the Great Eastern Cutlery stuff, like 100% obsessed, and at that time they're routinely doing what they're called SFOs, or special factory orders. And for people who don't know, that's basically Great Eastern's private label program, and they had a couple ways you could go about it. But if you wanted to take one of their existing patterns or even design your own pattern, they'd make it for you, but you had to order a minimum order quantity. And for example, you could have it so they don't even brand it Great Eastern Cutlery whatsoever, like the Smith & Sons Mud Bug, for example, off the top of my head. Or and that's a unique design to them, right? They're the only ones who has a lockback sodbuster, or the Remington Bullet. There's another perfect example. So what I wanted to do, and what I was trying to convince Enrique to do, because I wasn't in the mindset of doing anything on my own, and this is when he and I first started talking about his production knives and kind of his journey into the business, was the GEC number 74, which is the Viper, but the other way around. So the Mustang, I think, is what that one's called, with a drop point. And the only time they ever did a 74 with a clip point was on this Blade Forms knife, but it was a 2-blade knife, like a trapper. And I was like, why has Great Eastern never done the 74 single blade clip point? I'm like, that's basically as close as we're ever going to get to a production Lennys Clip. And I used to talk to Enrique about that. And, he would say like, well, why don't you do it? And I was like, I could call it the Benny's Clip, And so almost half jokingly, I never had any plans to do that at the time. I didn't really have the nerve to even approach something like that. And it never did materialize. And it wasn't that much longer, maybe a year later, that Apostle P, the YouTube guy, did that same knife.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what they called it at the time. The Homeland something or other,
Yeah,
or something like that.
Beautiful knife. Really lovely.
Yes. And I looked at that. I was like, that was what we were going to do. And it's like, I'm not like I'm taking credit for it or anything. Ideas are worth a dime. It's like action is where the real value is. But, it always like stuck in my mind, like, man, like the Benny's Clip, I should have done it. It was a good idea. We would have sold the whole batch, no problem. And so I'm happy to finally follow through and brand that knife the Benny's Clip.
In terms of the design of the knife, then, Ben, I mean, again, me being Thran, which is Northern Irish for difficult, I immediately jumped on the stubbiness or the snubbiness, I should say, of the clip, because it's a really sharp upswing on that clip from the bottom of the blade. Yeah, it's a lot more it's a lot more sudden than a standard clip point. What were you thinking when you were designing that the clip itself?
Well, sometimes you kind of work yourself into a corner a little bit, you know, and not that that's a bad thing, but like you're designing a blade and you have these parts that sort of need to be on the Lennys clip. Like it has to be this saber grind.
Yeah.
And you have to have this long swedge. And then, you know, all in all, the blade has to fit properly in the handle with the tip where it's supposed to be. And, you know, I wanted, so you could see the line. It's hard to see in this video, but the line where the saber starts, where the primary bevel starts. So you kind of get everything situated. And sometimes the last place you address is, at least when I'm drawing the blade, is this belly right here.
Yeah.
And so honestly, aesthetically, that's what I thought looked the best. And I think it lets you have really good slicing, you know, maybe not so much on a utility basis, like as if it was a straight edge knife, but like if you're cutting food or rope, or if you're working on an animal with this knife, like you could definitely skin an animal with this knife.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like if you're in here with your finger on this swedge and you have this big belly, like you're going to work right there. So I thought it was appropriate. I thought it looked good, and maybe not everybody's favorite. It didn't look right if I narrowed it out too much anyhow.
Yeah.
And
But that's the thing about it. It gives it the character that distinguishes it from other clip points. So it's not just another clip point. It is something that is a wee bit distinctive, which is lovely about it.
I think I would agree. I would absolutely agree. And you know, you want these knives to have character. You want them to impress upon you when you see them. So that's what I'm trying to achieve when I'm drawing these things is, does it look right? Is it going to perform? And does it have character? You know, if you look at other Lennys clips, I think it's interesting to see how people interpret the pattern. I think the Tony Bose ones are longer than 4 inches closed. Like this is basically 3.95. We'll just call it 4 inches closed. And I think his are over 4, like maybe 4 1/10 or 4 1/4. And I own some Ricardo Romano. He's a Brazilian maker. I have some of his that are very true to the original. But to me, it just feels bigger than it needs to be. You know, a 4-inch handle, that's a lot of knife. Like you guys have, Patty can attest, this is a lot of knife. You know, in your pocket, it's maxing out the leather slip that I gave you guys. Yeah. And to me, that's about as big as, at least until I get more adventurous down the road, as big as I want to make them.
You know, if you're needing a bigger knife than this, maybe the slip joint isn't what you want. Or maybe even a basic locking knife isn't as good as what, because I can't think of anything that this knife couldn't do that a locking knife could. I mean, I genuinely can't. And the nice part for me is the ricasso. There's a lovely high ricasso. So when you've got a full 4-finger grip, if it closes, that ricasso stops it completely from even nipping you, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, I would agree. If you have that real strong, powerful grip, you're going to feel that thing moving into your finger. And, you know, the only people who I ever get messages for asking me for a knife that's over 4 inches, I'll say, like, do you have really big hands? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I have, like, big Sasquatch hands. You know, and it's like, well, I can appreciate that, but how many people have hands as big as yours? Like, oh, well, like nobody. It's like, all right, well, you know.
I love the snub nose. This is another one in my collection. This is a Michael Duplessis, or what's he called? I've forgotten his blooming name now. Yeah, Michael Duplessis from South Africa. That's his version of that snub nose clip.
Yeah,
you see it?
That's really snubby. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and it's got a handle I can still just about get 4 fingers. My bottom one's on the curve, but it's very comfortable. So I've loved that snub nose effect anyway, before this came along. What about the last night, the K9? Ben, how did it go over? Because I know you were apprehensive. Did it sell?
Sure.
There? We still got a few left.
It's sold. I would say it's sold really good, not as great as some of the previous ones. So maybe I have really good intuition about my own products. Maybe it's circumstantial. Of course, you'll never know. But I was pleased.
If you make it again, you might, because I think people have maybe had it in their hands by the time you make that sort of knife again.
Sure. And I can say that I've not gotten any messages from anybody who bought one telling me they're disappointed or didn't feel good in their hand or they wish they didn't buy it. Like, I've not heard a single peep about it. And I can speculate all day as to why it's less popular. It's just people aren't into the design. That's probably the first and foremost. We came out with several knives in a row, all of which sold really quick. Eventually people are like, okay, finally, here's one I'm okay sitting out, know, and it's like August. So it's peak summer, which is the slowdown period anyhow for people buying stuff. We have recession either happening or looming, depending on who you talk to. So, or maybe it's just a dud. I'm not afraid to say that could very well be it. I'm really fond of it, honestly. And there's a couple things I super like about it. Like, number one, this thing is so unbelievably thin
behind the edge
that, I mean, oh my gosh, this thing's like, I've had someone measuring them at 7 or 8 thousandths behind the edge. Like, we're talking scalpel, and the walk and talk on these.
Go ahead.
Oh, the walk and talk on these, I love it. It's super snappy. It's springy. I mean, I play with it all the time, so I like it. and they're sold out in the UK, so that's good.
Oh, good. I'm really glad. This the thinness behind the edge on this little beastie is nearly unbelievable for the size of the knife. It's a saber grind, and it's got an amazing behind the edge. I mean, somebody was measuring it the other day there, and it was 8 thousandths behind the edge. I think mine's about 10 thousandths. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I measured mine the other day, and just a note for everybody at home who's doing that same measurement. I've watched a lot of people do it on YouTube, and I figured this out on my own eventually. It's a lot easier to measure behind the edge if you just lay the knife on the table with the blade facing up and then use your 2 hands to measure it instead of like doing this. Like, there's no reason to do this, guys. Just lay it on the table and, it's nice and steady. So I wanted to pass that along. But for sure, I measured mine at 10.5 thousandths up here by the tip, closer to the tip, and 11.5 thousandths here, where you have the shortest distance from the edge to the flat. Like, this is a very deep hollow grind, and it stays thin, a decent amount up the blade. Not, not in the same league as this crazy thing. It's thin, like all the way almost up to the nail nick. But you're buying a Lennys Clip is a more durable knife. Like, you're exchanging durability for some of that sliceability.
But
on this one, the test that I did on this one was tomatoes, Ben, for our American cousins over there. But you can actually get transparent slicing on a tomato. It's like micron thin tomatoes. It's unbelievable. They're invisible basically.
Cool.
That was what finally sold me, I think.
I'll tell you a story about how sharp these things are. So one of my dealers is Blade HQ. They're probably, if not the largest, certainly one of the largest online knife sellers in America, or probably the world. Now, I just like all the dealers, they get their units a couple weeks before they go up for sale, and they do their marketing. And they had the K9 out in the woods where they were taking all these outdoor pictures. And the photographer was staging knives in a tree stump to take pictures. And he was not cognizant of the fact at the moment that this knife will fold. And he shoved the K9 into the tree stump, and it collapsed on his pinky. And when they explained to me in an email what it looked like, he said, it's like when your Converse, the sole of your Converse is peeling off and you run and it flaps.
Oh, God.
And this poor guy had stitches like all the way around his finger. Like it almost, it split his finger the long way. And the doctor told him, he's like, that is an unbelievably clean cut. He's like, I cannot believe how clean that cut is. It's so deep and it's so clean. And I was like, I felt so bad. I don't ever want someone to get badly injured.
I thought you were going to say I felt so proud.
Well, hang on a second.
I would have been proud.
Read the body language here, guys. A bit of incongruity going on here. I was so upset, but look at his eyes. He's really proud.
I was definitely felt like terrible inside, but at the same time, I have to say I was impressed at how deeply and cleanly it cut through that guy's finger. But I felt terrible. I couldn't stop thinking about it for a couple days because you don't want anybody to get hurt by your creation,
Yeah,
but,
well, he won't do it again in a hurry, though.
No, but he kept the knife. I mean, he bled all over it. I don't know if they made him keep it or you're just kind of obligated to keep it. It's his now.
So Ben, give us about a couple of minutes. I know this is putting you on the spot, but that's just what this is for. Give us a couple of minutes on why people should go out and buy this beautiful, beautiful Lennys Clip.
Okay, certainly. So here's some things to consider if you are thinking about buying a Lennys Clip. Let's just say you are a locking knife guy. You're used to the larger locking knives. This is going to be a very good transition for you into the realm of slip joints. So it's got a full-size grip. It's got a little more heft than the rest of the catalog, but it'll still fit neatly in the leather slip. So I would say if you're accustomed to a larger knife, this is a good one. If you work outdoors and you find yourself using your knife maybe a little more roughly than someone in an office environment, I would say that this is probably the best knife in the catalog for you. Because of the design of the blade, you have all this full thickness stock here to give you rigidity and strength. Obviously, these knives, any Jack Wolf knife has M390 as opposed to your typical carbon steels. So they're going to retain an edge substantially longer, and they're going to be more or less stainless. They're not 100% stainless. No stainless steel is. So keep that in mind. Care and maintenance is important. Fit and finish on par with custom knives, twice the price, easily. And I think this thing's most important value proposition is that there is no other alternative if you like a Lennys Clip currently on the market from a production company at all. There's nothing else to choose from. You can pay a custom maker to make you a Lennys Clip, but I'm almost certain it's going to cost more than this. And some of the nicest Lennys Clips on the market will be at $800 to $1,200. So if you're in the market for a custom Lennys Clip, but you don't want to spend that kind of money, I think this is an incredible value. And in addition, it's going to come in 4 flavors. It's cutting edge. It's cool. It's very well made. It's robust. It's a full-size knife with a absolutely gorgeous profile. I think what attracts anybody to the Lennys Clip first and foremost is just the way it looks. It just looks beautiful. And for that, we have Tony Bose to thank. And I guess I would also say that if you want something that more or less had its inception from what they call him, the old dog, right? The old dog himself, Tony Bose. This is a good way to get a feel for, Tony Bose's creativity right here.
Absolutely couldn't have put it any better myself. But this camo carbon fiber, it's not, you couldn't put it across properly on the screen until you see it in the daylight. It is amazing. One of the nicest covers I've got.
It has it's iridescent like a fish
Very
scale.
much.
When you get it out in the sun.
Yeah, the black actually comes through. Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it's really nice. I'm extremely happy with it. The other one, of course, is the Fat Carbon Arctic Storm,
That's just nice.
which is blue. Now, my example doesn't have as much of there's like a sea foam color, almost like a blue green. There's like two shades of blue, and my example here was kind of short on the light blue. But if you guys want to get a better feel for what that looks like, on YouTube, I sent one to Nick Stasa. His channel is called Stasa 23 Knife Therapy. And you can get a really good look at what that one's going to look like. And of course, we have micarta. Nothing wrong with micarta, especially on a knife of this size for doing this kind of work. I mean, arguably, this is not a lot more, but this is more practical than the carbon fiber simply for the texture alone. Yep, I'm really happy with it. It's a beautiful knife. It's one that, regardless of if it's mine or a Tony Bowes or a Pena or a Romano or whoever, doesn't matter who makes it. You post a really nice, well-proportioned Lennys clip and people are drooling, because it's just sexy. It's like a classic car that has beautiful lines, like a classic Porsche or classic Corvette. Like, I don't care if you've never seen a car before. You look at it and you're like, hell yeah.
Okay, so what's your next move on scales? Because last time we talked about exotic scales, and you explained why they couldn't necessarily happen, because obviously ivory is not allowed, and certain wood just shrink around different countries and continents, which is fair game. So I've now seen some very interesting scales that you have produced with different types of carbon and different effects, which is really nice to see. So what can you now do to improve on that and to keep people more interested in newer products?
Very good question. And I don't want to give away what I'm doing because, the nature of surprise, I think, is important in what we do. But I will tell you this. I am actively having email conversations right now about what we might be able to do that we haven't done before. And I'm getting material samples. I'm collecting them here and I'm shipping stuff over so they can experiment with it. Ultimately, it's like, do you guys know if we can use this? We don't know until we get some. Are you willing to experiment with it? Yeah, sure. Just send it over. Okay, sweet. So I've got a list of stuff I want to try, and balls in my court to accumulate it and ship it over there. Okay. So that'll be a 2023 thing before you see it. It's not going to happen this year.
No, but it's nice to know, as Dan says, it's nice to know where you might be going in the future. That there's always that the next corner to go around, the next hill to go over. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I just don't like to sit on my laurels. Like, I'm always sitting here thinking, like, what can we do different? What can we do that's unique? What can we do that's new? How can we keep this interesting and fun in a time where people's attention spans are shorter than ever?
Ben, can I ask as well, is there any chance you're going to get, excuse me, some mirror edges maybe, or the hollow grind like a mirror polish? Is that in the future?
Oh man, I asked them about blade finishes. Mirror was not something they offered to me. Now, could they do it? Well, I'm sure they could, but mirror polishing is expensive, guys. Like, you guys might have seen, I posted a couple of those midnight jacks that Richie and Lindy Lou did for me. I did a couple like customized midnight jacks, one of which had a full polished blade. And the time it took her to mirror polish that blade added substantial cost to that variant. And so I like them, but I'm afraid, and audience, if you want something like that, you gotta let me know. But I'm afraid people like, well, it's great to look at, but I'll never use it because it's, the minute I cut something, I screw it up. So now it's an art piece. And especially with the way things are now, it's getting hard to justify art pieces and stuff for some folks.
Yeah. But also, can I just say that, sorry to interrupt you there, Ben, art pieces, wasn't this company, if I remember, a lot to do with your granddad and he's working knives? So how would that then link up to your original story of the Jack Wolf knife if you were just making art? I know your art is fantastic on your covers, but it's all usable art. This knife is for the working man and stuff like that. Would that go with all your themes, like just having like art pieces? To me, it doesn't seem something you'd be interested in. I don't know.
No, I think it's a departure. I think that would be customer request driven, and it's not something I had even considered doing, Stephen, until people asked. But I think as an entrepreneur, I actually heard an interview with Jeff Bezos. He said this, and it's like, love him or hate him, the dude's a pretty successful entrepreneur. But he was talking about how you have to be like stubborn in your vision, but flexible at the same time. You know, so like stubborn in that you have a vision and you have to stick to it, but flexible about like a lot of your preconceived notions will be wrong, and you need to be flexible and listen to what people want, as long as it doesn't jeopardize your vision. Which I've been like reflecting on what he said quite a bit in the last couple of days. And that's like, and that's kind of a perfect example, right? Like, and there's no right or wrong. There's just decisions. And then you learn the consequences of your decisions after you make them. But if there was enough people saying, you know, Ben, it would be, oh, we would love to see a mirrored blade. We'd love to see a mirrored blade. Who am I to say none of these knives should ever have a mirrored blade? You know, and if I felt really strongly about it, then maybe I'd have to stick to my guns. But truth be told, I think it's still going to cut. And if guys were going to use it as the way it was intended, I wouldn't sell someone a dull knife. You know, sell us a knife that isn't sharpened. Like, no, you know, it's a knife. But if you said, sell me a knife that has a beautiful finish that might scratch easy, well, if you'll buy it, I'll make it for you. You know.
I suppose in time to come, Ben, as you hopefully will keep growing, you can do private orders for things like that. You know, you can do an open order where you ask how many people want it, and you order that many knives, but people have to pay the extra.
You sure, exactly, and as long as it would meet minimum order requirements, you know, I can't necessarily, oh, give me 7 like this, give me 10 like this, give me 15 like this. Like, they can't do that. It's not practical. But if a dealer, let's say if a dealer wanted to order, you know, I'm not doing dealer exclusives yet. That's something that should happen down the road. And if a dealer said, okay, for my unique variation, I want to have a mirrored blade. Okay, if you're going to pay for them, let's do it, you know?
Yeah.
No, well answered. Well answered. I take it.
So, Ben, when does it come out?
September 16th, Friday, 11 Pacific. 2 Eastern in the United States, and what'd you say, Patty? Plus 19, GMT plus 1900 UK, and Framar Knives has a full allotment, and they've been great. I cannot tell you guys how awesome they are to work with. If anybody in the audience has had any reservations of buying something from them because you haven't heard of them, have no fear. Those guys are stand-up gentlemen.
Yeah, so nice. Yep. Well, thank you very much, Ben. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, Ben? Or
I just wanted to show you something.
Oh yes, go ahead.
Oh no way! Are they titanium?
Check that out.
They are. Oh, is that Deluxe Tinker? Is that a 3-layer?
It's a Tinker. Yeah.
Yeah, Deluxe Tinker.
Super Tinker.
Super Tinker.
Super Tinker.
Yeah.
Super Tinker.
I knew it was a Tinker or something or other. So I was at the show.
Is that titanium, man?
Titanium with a Damascus inlay there in
very nice
Swiss cross. So there's a gentleman named, I don't want to butcher his name, Yannick Ostermoor, I think is his name. He's German.
Yeah.
He's a German fella, and he comes to the knife shows. And I met him at Blade in Atlanta. Super nice guy, really cool stuff. And I was just at the show in Las Vegas called the USN Gathering, smaller boutique show compared to the Blade show. Anyway, he came to the table and bought a Midnight Jack from me, and I was super thankful for that. And so, you know, I wanted to reciprocate, and so I went over to his table to see like what kind of stuff he had. And he has these amazing customized Swiss Army knives. He sells the complete knives. He also sells scales.
Fantastic.
Gorgeous.
And so I just said, what do you got? Asked him what he had with scissors, because I kind of like having the scissors.
Yep.
And this was his last model with the scissors. I said, well, that's the one for me.
Perfect. Great knife. Great knife.
Well, you're allowed to be wrong about the scissors. Yeah.
It'll be a cool day. It'll be a cool day in hell, Ben, before we convince him of that one. Oh, I love that Damascus. That is so cool.
Isn't that cool?
Really
beautiful.
Sweet as.
Yep.
You've
So,
made
Patty,
Dan's night. You've made Dan's night.
You have, mate. All I was thinking is like, is it Cherokee? What's the coating called? The black coating called on the blades.
Cerakote.
Cerakote. If it had that on it, it'd just be the icing, and maybe some copper plate on it as well, or something like that. It would just be the and filed back springs. It'd just be the icing on the cake, wouldn't it? It'd just
He's
be
never satisfied, is he? Never.
Now, do you know what? I'm not satisfied, Ben. Whatever you do, I'll always say to you, what are you going to do next to improve? Not because there's anything wrong, because I want to push people and make sure they get the absolute best all the time. So
I appreciate that, guys. I'm here to service the community, right? I want feedback. I want constructive criticism. I want to hear your guys' ideas. And so never hesitate, reach out, let me know what you think. I'll take in everything. No promises I'm going to do what everybody wants. That's not how it works, but I'm very open to suggestions.
What we say in my business is that you can have your say, but you don't necessarily get your way.
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. How have I never heard that my whole life? That sounds like something my parents would say to me.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Patty,
what do you have against scissors? You don't like scissors?
Look at his hair.
I'm a knife man. I can cut it with a knife.
Right, we're not going down. We're going to stop right now, children.
Right.
Okay.
Again, Ben, thank you so much for coming along. Always a joy to talk to you, and you answer every question that's asked. So we can't ask for more. Look forward to it next month. From all of us to all of you out there, get out and buy your knife. They are gorgeous. Take care. Bye-bye now.